3, 2, 1. Yay! Nailed it.
Did.
All right, so I'm going to just start off
Love
by,
it.
first of all, trying to open this. So, welcome back to Lady on the Street podcast. I'm your host, Priscilla, and today we are having a little fun on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm going to open this up really quickly, and we're going to get things started.
Don't knock me out.
I know.
We're like, yay! Aw.
I know. This is like the first one for the podcast. I always pre-make our drinks, but why not, right?
Yay.
Let's see. Ready?
Oh, you look like you're a professional. Yeah, you are. You're professional at it. Love it.
I know. Here, I'll grab yours and we'll start this off in a second. But let's see.
Love it. Love it.
So bubbly. I love it.
It sure is.
Here, you can have this one.
Thank you.
And then I'll swap.
I have T-Rex arms. Sorry.
And
your son was just, no wonder he liked me. No wonder he liked me right when I walked in. He's like, look, a T-Rex. He was adorable.
That's so funny.
Your children are beautiful.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll set this here and get rid of the evidence.
Okay.
In there. Okay. I'm going to start this off. All right. First of all, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah. I'm super excited. Excited.
So today's guest is someone who is well known as a San Antonio native, but her decades in Tejano music industry have earned her international recognition. With a career that kicked off from the time she was just 10 years old and grew throughout the 90s and beyond, she's a household name with hits like Esa Química que Tienes, Soy Tu Amor, and Ganas de Besarte. She's now focused on building other striving artists as a producer with her very own record label, Shellshock Records 3, and last year she took her passion up a notch with music even further as the artist in residence in the UTSA School of Music. Like many of you out there, I grew up memorizing the melodies and lyrics of her songs as I overheard my mom listening to them on KXTN in the mornings, and now they are so nostalgic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the one and only Shelly Lares.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to bring you along every time I need to be introduced.
No, I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
This is like a whole moment for the podcast. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I told you earlier, I love supporting women. I love supporting businesses, podcasts. I mean, I just think it's super awesome when I see people doing things that they love.
Yeah.
You know, it's really awesome.
Well, again, thank you. And we always start things off. We popped it a little early, but you asked for Moscato.
I did. I like Moscato. I don't know. I love to occasionally have a beer or drink, but it always makes me sleepy.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
Too cozy, right?
I guess so. Well, because mostly during my career, like I was very disciplined with my voice. So I wouldn't do alcohol.
Really?
Yeah, of course, no smoking, obviously.
Yeah.
Even with things that I would eat and not eat, I would stay away from certain things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was very disciplined.
Well,
so I guess it kind of stayed with me. Well, cheers. Thank you for getting it. It's actually very good. Thank you.
I know, I hadn't had this one, and I was like, sometimes Moscatos are iffy.
I like the bottle, too. I think it's very cute.
Pretty.
Very cute.
Well, I'm so ready to get this started. So
nice.
I wanted to ask you a little bit. Just tell me briefly about like your upbringing. So you're from what part of town?
I'm from here, San Antonio. I grew up close to the St. Mary's University area. Okay. So I went to school there. I went to Holy Rosary, and then I went to St. Paul, and then I went to Providence High School. So I grew up, pretty much by the Woodlawn area.
Yeah.
I consider that my hood, if you will. Woodlawn Lake is very near and dear to my heart for so many reasons. My dad taught me to fish there. I was a Pop Warner cheerleader there. And I would always do my runs there. It was kind of like a space I would go just to like going home, you know? Mm-hmm. So grew up here in San Antonio, and I love my city because it's, beside it being very cultural and beautiful historically, it's very diverse. Yeah. With music as well. Like, we listen to a lot of everything here. So I love being from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Especially touring, all over the world and all over the United States. Yeah, there's other states I love, like Oregon would be next in line for me. If I was to move anywhere, I would want to move to Oregon.
Why Oregon?
And I would love to live in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, small, quaint town
Uh-huh.
that I just fell in love with when I was on my way to Portland. So yeah, I love it there. But San Antonio is home to me
Yeah.
always. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something so unique about San Antonio that I hear from everybody, but I'm surprised Oregon. Is it because of the scenery or like, yeah?
Yes. And I'm a winter girl, and we don't have
Hmm.
winter here.
No.
We don't. So I just love it. I love the trees. I love nature. I love just the quiet, I guess, the quietness of it all because I live in a world that's not noisy in a bad way.
Hmm.
Um, since my 2 years off the road, I my brain is like a constant radio.
Yeah.
So like I'm constantly creating music in my mind, like
Mm.
every day.
Yeah.
Even like in the middle of the night when, I'll dream about it.
Hmm.
When I wake up to turn to the side, I hear music. It's like it just doesn't shut off.
Really?
Yeah.
For me, I'm like similar. I think my brain's always going, but it's lists, like to-do
Oh,
list.
really? Wow. So that's very organized.
No,
You
it's
have your
stressful. I'd rather have
I
music.
know, I know. I think we all have that. And I think it takes a while for people to kind of really tap into that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because to me,
Hmm.
these are gifts. These
Yeah.
are these are amazing gifts God gives us, and I think it takes us time to really find it and understand it and know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, then it sounds like Oregon would be the perfect place for you to
Yeah,
kind of
I
like,
want to buy a home in Bend and really retire there
yeah.
when I get older. Yeah, that would
That
be great.
I think fall foliage is like on my bucket list.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
I got to
but
check
it's
it out.
beautiful out there, and the people are great.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of Tejano fans in that area. I did the Oregon State Fair, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of fans there that love Tejano.
I'm actually quite surprised at how far of a reach Tejano
It
has.
does. It's
Um,
internationally.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
I have over 111 countries that stream my music.
yeah,
So yeah, no, it's international music. People don't think that it is, but it
yeah.
is.
And I will say that like so growing up in the 90s, Tejano was like everything,
Right.
And obviously over the years the number of artists, the Tejano music
Mhm.
artists, it's kind
Mhm.
of, varied and it's not
Yeah.
as prominent as it once was, but
Yeah.
like even the fact that they brought back KXTN, like,
Yes.
there's still, I love 90s
Yeah.
Tejano, like the older stuff, the newer
Everybody
stuff.
loves it. Everybody loves
Yeah.
it. I mean, what's not to love about the 90s? I mean,
Right.
we were doing things on a very high standard
Hmm.
at that time. And we still kind of do. Being when I started in 1982, there were not kids my age at 10 years old listening to Tejano.
Yeah.
They were not.
No.
Primarily older people.
Hmm.
Um, so coming into a genre that I fell in love with and was introduced to at 10 years old, with a local band called Hatamales. They were like an orquesta.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the old school orquesta sound,
Hmm.
like your Little Joes, your Ruben Ramos, your Latin
Yeah.
Breeds. So I fell in love with that. Um, and then, but as I was growing, probably like 14, 15, like I wanted to start implementing a lot of new sounds,
Yeah. Hmm.
wanted to have my own band. I wanted to start my own sounds. And so then come 17, 18 years old, now I had people my age listening to Tejano.
Yeah.
And I think because they saw that we were young, because well, Selena and I we were the youngest too. We
Hmm.
both started very young. We were the same age. She was only 7 months older than me. She had already been singing
Yeah.
about 4 years before I had started. So I think they started seeing bands like La Sombra, La Mafia, Los Palominos. We were all the same age.
Yeah.
We were teenagers.
Hmm.
So I think that was teenagers were feeling like they could relate.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
could relate to us. But yeah, the 90s was man hardcore in a sense that we were all working very hard.
Yes. I know that. And I know just as a consumer of it, like so when I was younger, my mom, my sister, who was a
Hmm.
teen at the time, were obsessed with the Hano music.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bit too young to like really gravitate towards like the concerts and stuff, but
Right.
we would go to
The dance,
Rosedale
yeah, the
Park.
Rosedale Park. That's my
Yeah.
hood.
And so we would go all the time and I would get tired, but my mom and my sister just loved being there. And so thinking about it now, like the music, it grew on me
Yeah.
as an adult,
Yeah.
and it's like my top Pandora stations and
Yeah.
Spotify. Like
Yeah.
love it so much. But you guys, that whole industry was just so hardworking, and what a
Yeah.
come up for people in our community, you
Yes,
know?
because Tejano, especially for women, there was
Mm-hmm.
only 7 women when I started.
Yeah.
I was one of the 7,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very male dominated. And we would only hear women once every 2 hours on radio. This was still AM radio,
Yeah.
wasn't FM yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
And I remember the transition,
Yeah.
transition we went from AM to FM.
Mm-hmm.
My music, it was on KXTN. My song was the last song on AM and the first song when they transitioned to FM. So that was something I felt like very honored that they picked me to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was something that we were selling a lot of records. We were gaining a lot of popularity.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing a lot of shows. But I look back at it, but we really had the whole package.
Yeah.
Like us artists at the time, we had the whole package. We had the talent, we had the drive, we had the look, we had the branding.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that, is important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think once corporate America took notice to us, which were your big record labels, Sony, Capitol, Arista.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing very well for these companies.
Yeah.
But like anything else, if you're not evolving, I think everyone just kind of got stuck. Things started changing. I know in San Antonio in particular, because a lot of people from Mexico started moving more into San Antonio
Mm-hmm.
area, and along with that comes their type of music,
Their sound. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a lot of norteño coming in,
Yeah.
and I mean, realistically, norteño fans, Mexicanos, are so diehard.
Yeah.
They will pay whatever money they have to pay to see their artist. And Tejano, I feel like everyone got spoiled.
Yeah.
Like we had 20 bands for $10.
You're
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then when we started like charging more individually, they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to pay that."
They're used to that big festival with
Yeah.
yeah. You're
Yeah,
right.
it was weird. Like once Norteño started coming in, and it was about numbers. It's always
Mm-hmm.
about numbers. Once they started coming in and playing, getting more airplay on our FM stations, I think that's when things started to shift. That and most of the stations, including your KXTNs, wanted to stay just playing 90s music.
Yeah. I mean, that is very true, and I think that contributed to ultimately it. I mean, it's come back, but
Because you can still listen to it and you're still gonna just hear 90s music.
that's all they play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and fans
it's
didn't
true.
even know that we veterans were still
Like making
continuing
new
to make new
sounds.
music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think they would be, I'm not saying on my behalf, like they were still playing some of my new stuff, but they weren't playing the newer artists.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The newer artists. And then as things changed, technology changed, internet came along.
Mm-hmm.
On the Tejano realm. Like for some reason, my industry that I love my genre. I love Tejano style because I feel like we are very unique.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like no one really can be as versatile as we are.
Yeah.
Uh, but on this realm of things, as far as the business side,
Mm-hmm.
so many of our artists didn't apply that to their careers.
Yeah.
And so with that also, the internet stations started coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't paying for licensing. Like they weren't legitimate radio stations.
Yeah.
And they felt like, oh, we're helping Tejano Radio. We're playing the new artists that the FMs aren't playing. And we're going to be heard all over the world. I'm like, yeah, but you're not doing it legitimately because you're not paying we songwriters and publishers.
Yeah.
You're not doing things legitimately, right?
Yeah.
So they were pretty mad at me for a little bit because I was being very vocal about it.
Yeah.
But I am a songwriter and I am a publisher.
Yeah.
And I feel like, if you're going to start a business, well, you got to do it right. You got to do it the
Mm-hmm.
right way. So with that, technology started changing. People were able to produce their music on their own. And so they started feeling like, oh, I'm just going to do it. I could take a selfie and it's going to be my CD cover.
Yeah.
And we're like, the standard of the way things were done
Yeah.
dropped tremendously for a little while.
Right.
I think now the newer artists and the new group is starting to understand. Oh, we got to do this differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, your talent and your gifts only get you so far.
Yeah.
It's really the
You
business.
have to know, you have
Yeah,
to be a business person
you
or
have.
have somebody advocating and doing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I knew I wanted to do it for a living.
Yeah.
And in order for me to do it as a living, my parents were very adamant about that. They're like, my father was a businesswoman, my parents owned a business.
Mhm.
So that's how they handled my career.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to be around for 40 years
Mhm.
had we done it differently.
Yeah, because it's so easy to like you hear so many stories about artists who don't know, and then they end up getting everything taken from them, or
Yes,
you
we
know,
don't own our music.
yeah,
We don't have retirement.
yeah,
We don't even have health insurance.
it's
I mean,
terrible.
we have done so many benefits for our pioneers
Yeah,
when they get ill. It's
yeah,
sad.
it's so sad.
And so that's one of my goals for the upcoming is I want to start some sort of organization
Yeah,
for either that or just educate better, you know.
yeah,
And I feel as Tejano, where Tejano is today,
hmm,
there's so much talent. There's a lot of talent.
yeah,
They need a lot of guidance, though.
hmm,
They need a lot of guidance, and it's not a bad thing. They need a lot of guidance, but also, you know, they're not doing things on a business perspective. They're not like, like I ask them, I'm like, look, you want to be unique. There's already this artist. There's already this artist. There's already this artist. You really need to do music that speaks to you, you
hmm,
know, and learn how to register your music. Learn how to become a registered writer.
yeah.
Learn how to own your music. You're doing things independently. This is how you need to do it. So, I mean, that's my biggest role in Tejano right now is mentoring,
Yeah.
consulting, guiding, because I've been there, done it,
Yeah.
and I know how it feels. But I feel like there's a small shift happening, um, where Tejano really wants to make kind of emerge a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but I really feel that the Tejano industry really undervalues our genre.
I think so too. I feel like so one of the more recent bands to come up, and I brought this up with somebody before, but Grupo Frontera.
Right.
I think the reason that they are doing so well is because they are a blend
Yeah.
of styles,
Right.
right? And so the Hano music on its own, while I think it goes back to what you're saying about like fans,
Right.
the $10 you see it all,
Yes.
right?
The support.
We're
Yeah.
very the Hano fans are very specific to that one sound,
Right.
right? And so I don't know. I think like with the new age, with social media, with TikTok, with everybody kind of blending the
Yeah.
sounds,
Yeah.
it's got to be
Well, we've been
similar to
doing
that.
it. We've been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
Frontera is still the representation of Tejano music.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many different types of Tejano.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have your conjunto,
Mm-hmm.
you have your orquesta. The traditional sound of Tejano.
Yeah.
You have your Tejano progressive.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Tejano pop feel.
Yeah.
There's so many different
There
elements.
really are like
I
yeah.
mean, we just blend genres like crazy.
Yeah.
And the reason that I love and I hope the guys continue to at least utter the word Tejano,
Tejano, yes.
because that is super important.
Mm-hmm.
It is super important for people to know that Frontera is a Tejano group. Also,
Yeah.
they're
Mm-hmm.
from Tejas. They represent us.
Yeah.
But it took them really collaborating with the major Latino artists
Yes.
to be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. That's great. That's how
Yeah.
it should be. I love collaborations. I
Yeah.
think they're super important, and I think we should always collaborate,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be with someone in our industry or outside of our industry,
Yeah.
because it's a win-win.
It really is. I mean, it's all about the exposure too,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Our
And
music industry isn't, I mean, the music industry as a whole, not just Tejano, is
right.
in a very weird place. Like, we continue to be taken advantage of on so many
Mm-hmm.
levels with our art.
Yeah.
Um, we do love social media.
Yeah.
We do love streaming platforms. But the thing with streaming platforms is we have to pay these companies to put our music up,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't really make much money.
Yeah.
And then on social media, if fans can see you singing for free all the time,
Yeah.
they may not stream your music, they may not download it, they may not go see your show.
Yes.
So you have to be very smart with how much am I giving them on social media as well.
That's true. Yeah.
We want them to come see us live.
Yes.
And if you're a diehard fan, you'll do
You're
it.
doing it, yeah.
But you know, in the bigger, ratio of people, that's not really how it works.
Right. And I think, I mean, there are diehards, right, who are going
Hmm.
to, but you constantly have to get new people to
Yes.
not buy into it, but like to
Right.
support,
Right.
you know?
And I always feel like you should always evolve. You should
Yeah.
always reinvent yourself as an artist. Because obviously I did. Because if I hadn't,
Yeah.
I'd still be sounding like I sounded at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have had my hits like Soy tu amor, Ganas de
Yes.
besarte.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first signed with my first executive producer, my first record label at 17, I was very adamant that I wanted to produce and write my own music.
Mm-hmm.
And my then executive producer, Manny Guerra, was like, "But I'm your producer. I
Yeah.
signed you because I'm your producer." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're not in my heart and you're not in my mind, and you don't know the type of music that I want to connect with my fans,
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
style." So he compromised with me, and with JJ was my co-writer, and let us write half of the album.
Yeah.
And he was very impressed. He was like, "Wow, this is really good." Second album, same thing. "I don't want you to produce me." By the third album, I was already like kicking him out of his own
Yeah.
studio. And because I took a liking, a love to the recording process at 10 years old. The
Yeah.
minute I walked into that recording studio, and it was with Manny Guerra. He recorded my first record at 10, and then he signed me at 17.
Yeah.
I would ask him a million questions on how things work. But I knew very early on how I wanted to, what I wanted to produce, what I wanted to write,
Yeah.
how I wanted to connect with fans. And it was on a very versatile level
Yeah.
because I also still implemented pop music, and
Mm-hmm.
I implemented country music
Yes.
and rock.
Oh, we're gonna get
So
there
yeah.
too. Yeah.
So yeah, I did all those things.
I do love that, and I want to say, like, what a big moment to in that time to let a female take reins of her
Yes.
career.
And like at that time I was like 19,
Trailblazer. Yeah.
19. I was 19 years old. And I remember he walked out of the about out of the studio, and Jose Rosario, who works with me now with Shellshock, he was doing A&R for Manny at this time.
Hmm.
Jose and I, yeah, Jose's known me since I was 13. And Manny tells Jose, "She just kicked me out of my own studio." But I mean, I guess, he had faith in me too,
Yeah.
that I was going to do it.
Yeah.
The only hard part about all of that and sad part about all of that was I never got credited. I never got credited as a producer.
Yeah.
As a writer, yes,
Yes.
but not as a producer.
Producer. And in the music industry, from my understanding, the production of it, producing, like, those are the big names that we,
They're very big.
right? Yeah.
So for so many years, in the 7 years I was with Manny, everyone thought he gave me my sound,
Yeah.
and he didn't.
Yeah.
He contributed a tremendous amount, yes,
Right.
but I wouldn't have been able to do it without Manny. Without the studio, without him manufacturing my music and all of
Mm-hmm.
these things. But there was that business side too that we were learning the hard way.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
I didn't know about publishing then.
Yeah.
He was my publisher. I didn't know there was monies in that until I
Mm-hmm.
became a songwriter, and my biggest hit, "Soy tu amor," started bringing in a lot of money for me as a 50% songwriter,
Yeah.
and he made 100% as a publisher.
Yeah.
And so we were making, oh gosh, I've made, just in that one year alone of 94, 95, I made clearly over 200,000 on that one song
Yeah.
as a 50% songwriter.
I know. So it when you're
Do
at
the
the
math.
bottom line, like,
Yes.
yeah. No, well, I'm happy that you're sharing this, but more importantly, you're using that knowledge to give back right now. The
Absolutely.
mentorship, like, because you
Yes.
learned the hard
I learned the
way.
hard way. I wish I would have had a Shelly.
Right.
Patsy Torres was my mentor,
Yeah.
and she taught me a lot about it,
Hmm.
but not like in detail of the music, because she was still kind of learning at
Yeah.
this time.
Exactly.
She
Hmm.
was still learning. So, but now I tell people, I lead with my record label, I lead with an artist's heart and a label mind,
Yes.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That's how I approach everything.
Right.
And there's artists out there that will listen and apply,
Hmm.
and then there's some that just don't listen.
They want to learn the hard
And
way.
I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
you're on your own,
Hmm.
but and it's not to put anyone down. It's just like, this is the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You know, The music industry is not an easy industry to be in.
Mhm.
And so many people feel that it's just entertainment,
No,
you know?
it's
And they're like, "Oh,
livelihoods.
it's entertainment. Oh, you're going to come so you can sing for everybody." And it's like, "No.
This is your
This is our
craft.
craft.
Like,
This is
yeah.
our livelihood.
Yes.
It's how we make our money."
Mhm.
And for me, this is how I made my money. My shows, my branding, my
Mhm.
merchandising, and then my songwriting and publishing.
Yeah.
Those three things were the bread winning things for me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
People were like, "Come, come." You're like, "Show me the
I
contract."
know. And another thing, our industry, so many of our promoters didn't even do contracts. Some of our
Mhm.
artists didn't even do contracts. They just go.
Yeah.
They don't get deposits. They
Ugh.
don't do contracts. Even in collaborations and their songwriting, I'm like, there still needs to be some sort of agreement,
Oh, for sure.
between you guys before you even get into the studio.
Yes.
All of these
Yeah.
things are super important. But I
Yeah.
mean, I learned the hard way, and I can imagine the women before me, like Laura Canales,
Mhm.
uh, Janie C. Ramirez, Elsa Garcia, these women, Patsy even,
Mhm.
that were around before me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to know the stuff that Laura Canales went through,
Right.
um, because she's a OG.
Yes.
She's like one of the original women of Tejano, and was one of the guys.
Yeah.
Traveled with the guys and probably stayed in the same hotel room as the guys, and
Yeah.
all
Mhm.
these types of things. And I know I've heard stories from Sonny, from David Mares, of how they just got burned,
Yeah.
and they were making a lot of money for people.
Yeah.
So it's sad.
It's terrible, and the fact that, like, because the music industry is just always constantly changing and there's new people
Yes.
coming in and out, I feel like it's constant,
Yeah.
like people are always getting taken advantage
And the
of.
new generation, they just have a whole different mentality.
Yeah.
Um, they want things to happen very fast.
Fast. Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of sense of entitlement. Just because you record a record doesn't mean you deserve to sweep the awards.
No.
You know, and there's artists that I work that come to me, and some have come to me and, like, well, how much do you charge? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you that. I have to hear you first.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you sound like.
Yes.
And I've told a couple of artists, you're not ready to be on a record yet.
Mhm.
You need to work on your voice a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, you can auto tune it, you can fix it. No, that's not the point.
Right. Mhm.
You gotta be better first.
Yeah.
And you'll be glad,
Yes.
when you do that.
Yeah.
But they want to win awards right away. They want to be recognized. And who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
To their
And
credit,
I'm
right?
not saying that my journey is their journey, okay? Because it's not.
Yeah.
But I give examples of, like the Tejano Music Awards, for instance. I was first nominated in 1984,
Mhm.
1983, 84. I was 11 or 12 years old.
My goodness.
Um, I did not, and then of course 1989 came along. That was my first album. I was nominated in the female vocalist, the female entertainer for years until I won.
Yeah.
I didn't win my first nomination, 1984.
Yeah.
I did not win till 1998.
Yeah. That is a long time. So, like, the overnight thing is, but I mean, even the nominations are prestigious,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, like,
Yeah,
and especially how consecutive they were for you.
right, right.
But I get what you're saying, like that
I was the only
people need to
nominee.
realize that.
I was the only nominee in those two categories that never changed.
Yeah.
Like all the other two women or three women would change. They would
Mhm.
fluctuate, but I was the consistent nominee
Yeah.
every single year,
Yeah.
and then finally, after I won, which, was a very special moment for me. No one could say that I didn't earn it,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
because I continued working hard. I continued to not focus on winning awards, on being number one.
Mhm.
That wasn't my goal.
Yeah.
My goal was to be consistent
Yeah.
and to grow every year.
Mhm.
Those were my goals, because my father was really the one that raised me to believe, like, that's how people are going to respect you, is how your stamina, your longevity.
Mhm.
And when you grow every year, every year, every year. And that was what I focused on. So I pretty much created my own lane very early on in my career. I was like, I'm not here to compete with anyone. We're all different. We all have something to bring to the table. But in our industry, they always put the women up against each other.
Yeah.
It's just a given. Um, we're under the microscope. Did we gain weight? What are we wearing?
It's terrible.
I mean, it's like all of these things, and the
Yeah.
guys can look like crap, and nobody cares.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so that's another thing. But I also took it on like, okay, challenge us. We're ready for it.
Yeah.
Women, we're very strong. I mean,
Definitely.
women are very strong emotionally, spiritually, physically. I mean, you have the children. So, I mean, I think there's just I think it was just something that was really contributing to my tenacity and to my
Yeah.
perseverance, really,
Yeah,
to be
you're
honest.
like, I'll prove
Yeah,
you
I didn't
wrong.
yeah, I didn't take it as I was afraid.
Yeah.
I knew what I was bringing to the table. I knew I was making those connections with fans, and I knew fans were supporting me. And I loved, meeting fans throughout my years on the road in so many different places. I mean, I have 4 generations of fans,
Yeah.
that grew up with my music.
Yeah, well, so I had your music on yesterday. I was playing it in
Mhm.
the house, and my little daughter, who you just met, was
Mhm.
like, "I like this,"
Oh, how cute!
and
I
I was
love
like,
it.
"Me too." Like it
Yeah.
just hits the beats, you know. So
Yeah.
I want to know though, Shelly, tell me, are you an only child
No, I have the baby of 4.
of
I have
four?
2 sisters and a brother. So
Mhm.
it's my sister Patty, my brother Steve, my sister Laura, and then me. And I came after Laura. There's a 9-year gap between Laura and myself,
Yeah.
and they're a year apart from each other.
Ah, okay,
So,
okay.
so I was pretty much growing up like an only child because they were
Mhm.
already leaving, the nest,
Yeah.
when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned my mom and dad had a business.
Yes.
They did a rubber stamp engraving. We used to embroider like the military fatigues.
Oh.
Daddy made a lot of the historical markers throughout Texas.
Mhm.
He would also embroider like the panels for the aircrafts. Dad did such amazing work, and he was
Yeah.
so good at. My father was a very hardworking man, as was my mother, and just amazing work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, and so and never back down to a challenge ever. Neither one of them.
We know where she gets it
Yeah,
from
that's
then.
where we get it from. All of us are this way, honestly. And so when I signed my first record contract, and I was already on the road with Hot Tamales from 10 to 14, right?
Mhm.
I was on the road. The furthest I would travel was Houston, Austin, Dallas,
Yeah.
Waco. But at 14, that's when I was like, you know what? I really want to have my own band. I want to I want to get out of San Antonio. I
Yeah.
want to get out of Texas. And so we formed the band. But once I signed with Manny, I was a junior in high school at Providence, and that's when he said, "Look, we're getting a lot of good response from this album, and if Shelly's going to be successful, you guys need to do this full time.
Yeah.
Like that's it, just full time." And so my mom and dad closed their business, like closed
Really?
how we ate and how they
Yeah.
paid bills. And daddy started booking me, and we went on the road, and we went into a business we knew nothing about,
Yeah.
and just the 3 of us. And my siblings were always very supportive, but they had their own dreams and aspirations.
Yeah.
They were musically inclined.
That's what I was gonna
Oh
ask. Are
yeah, my
they?
sisters, they can sing. My
Yeah.
brother can sing. My brother plays instruments. My sister plays guitar. My mom sang. My uncles sang. My mom's side, my aunts, they sang. Like there's a lot of music in my
Yeah.
family, but just me and my cousin Tony Lares were the ones that took it on as a profession. He toured with me.
Yeah.
He was in my very first band, and he retired with me from the road for many many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were the only 2.
Yeah. I was wondering though, like, so at 10 years old, I mean, clearly your family must have recognized
Oh,
you.
they
Like,
did.
like
I would
when did you
sing
start singing?
when I as far back as I can remember. So my brother was really the musician. What I mean in that sense was like he could read music
Yeah.
because he was
Okay.
in band
Got it.
and in jazz band. So he played piano, guitar, and he had a drum set at the house. And I was fascinated with the drum set. He wouldn't let anybody, my sisters play the drum set, just me. And I remember him showing me on the guitar like how to fret and how to chord, and on the piano he taught me the keys because I never studied music, and so he was showing me, and but then as I got a little older, so I was exposed to so many different genres.
Yeah.
Tejano was what mom and dad would play on the weekends, or we'd hear it at family events.
Mm-hmm.
My brother listened to Kiss, Pat Benatar Hart, Willie Nelson, Linda Ronstadt. I grew up a huge Olivia Newton-John and a Linda Ronstadt fan and Pat Benatar fan. And my sister Patty listened to just about everything. My sister Laura listened to more R&B, Commodores, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And so I grew up like just absorbing all these different sounds.
Yeah.
And my parents bought me a cassette player, and I was obsessed with the movie Fame.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with the soundtrack. This is when they used to have soundtracks out. I'm doing that now again as a film producer. So I would carry this thing around, and I would sing. Whether you wanted to hear me sing or not, I'd sing at family functions. I would sing if my cousin got married or had a quinceañera. I would just put my tape player on and sing. So
I love it.
it was very early on
Yeah.
that I showed a huge interest in music.
I love that, like, all of that in your upbringing and stuff has probably contributed to your personal sound, you know?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I think at this point in my life, people that have known me in the Tejano realm, and they come to my studio, or they're hearing like what I'm creating now, they're like, I never knew that you wrote music like this,
Mm-hmm.
like this genre. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you pick your poison with me. You tell me what you want, and I'll create
You
it.
can do it.
So I
Ah,
mean, from big band orchestra to mariachi to hip hop, to neo soul, R&B. Tejano is easy.
yeah,
I can
right.
do that in my sleep.
Yes.
But Tejano's like 25% of really what the other stuff that I'm
Yeah.
creating also. So no, I took a very, and then of course learning the technical part of recording.
Yeah.
I grew up recording on reel to reel analogs,
Mm-hmm.
and Manny used to allow me to take the tapes off and put them back on. He showed me how to load it.
Yeah.
He showed me how to splice, and he would show me how to EQ stuff,
Yeah.
and I would watch him. And then when he wasn't in studio and they had Brian Red Moore, who is the engineer at Q Productions. Now he's
Mm-hmm.
been with Mr. Quintanilla for a long time,
Yeah.
but Red was someone that worked on my earlier recordings with me. I learned a lot from him, watching
Mm-hmm.
him. And as I would go record in studios with Gibby Velasquez or anybody like that, I would watch their techniques. And
Yeah.
but women, we hear frequencies differently than men do.
Really?
Yeah. So I'd be like, no, we need to do that. They're like, no. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, if it's my record, it's going to be the way that I'm
Yeah.
not wanting you to do it. But I'd spent, I loved, that's always been my favorite part, was working on music,
Yeah.
writing, producing, being in studio.
Yeah.
We would be in studio from one day to the next,
Oh.
like not leave.
Yeah.
We would go in the morning, not come out till the following morning. Um, Several of my albums, I spent clearly over 350 hours per album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean the talent, you guys, but like I feel like that is so important is just kind of watching and taking notes,
Yeah.
you know? And so the fact that you had mentors that
Oh,
allowed you to
yeah.
do that and helped you
Yes.
like
My dad,
um
especially, he'd be like, you got to watch me
yeah.
because I'm not always going to be here,
Oh, yeah.
And he was
Mhm.
right. He was right. And I started taking an interest in the business side a little early on.
Mhm.
Mama was the one in charge of my finances.
Yeah.
Mama was amazing with that. She could budget like no one else.
Yeah.
Daddy and I were very similar. Like, well, if we want something and we have the money, we're just gonna go get it. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
Mama was
Yes.
more the disciplined one, to just be like, no, we can't do this yet.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I remember wanting to learn, and I remember like our bookkeeper coming over and working with my mom for hours. Mama kept track of everything.
Everything.
We did things legit,
Yeah.
everything with my business, and so I wanted to learn that part of it. But it was kind of my parents didn't want me worrying about that. They wanted me to just concentrate on my shows
Yeah.
and not for me to be stressed about anything. But at the same time, I did want to learn. I
Mhm.
did want to see it. I did want to be part of it. You know, it really wasn't until probably 3 years, 3 of the last years of my being on the road,
Mhm.
that I completely took over
Oh,
my
really?
business.
Mhm.
One, because things were changing. There were other ways for me to make money, streaming, website.
Yeah.
And those were things Mama wasn't
They
used
were
to doing. She was
newer.
old school, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then my fiance, she came on the road with me right away, and was like just killed it with taking care of stuff and helping my mom, and selling my merch and doing my website, and just a lot of things that was very helpful,
Yeah.
to my mom. I always wanted my mom around more towards the end of my being on the road, for just being there,
Just being your mom,
just to
not
be
your,
my mom,
yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But I retired her a year before me, and she was not happy. She was very mad. She loves being on the road.
Yeah.
She loves seeing fans. She loves talking to them.
Yeah.
She loves seeing musicians. That was her social time.
Yeah.
So yeah, she loved it.
Oh, what a
I
sweet
know. And
story,
I think it
though.
reminds her of my dad,
Probably. Well,
you
and also
know.
just like all of the blood, sweat, and tears they put
Yes.
into
It's
it,
like
you
that's all we've
know?
known.
That was her
Yeah,
livelihood.
her livelihood for 40
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
And I go, Mom, look, I've hogged you for 40 years. I want you to spend time with my siblings. I want you to spend time with your grandkids and great grandkids.
Yeah.
Just enjoy life now, in the latter part of, the
Hmm.
last part of your life now, and the last chapter. And so now, oh, she loves it. Now she sees my niece and nephews, and my
Yeah.
great nieces and nephews, and goes to the
Yeah.
parties,
It's
because we
she
didn't
was
go
like,
to the
I'm over it. I'm
parties.
good now.
We missed all of
All of
that.
it. Yeah.
We missed birthdays, graduations, births,
Yeah.
baptisms, um, Christmas, Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
New Year's Eve.
Well, because those are all
Those
times you were
were we were
probably,
getting paid money, good
yeah.
money.
Mhm.
And the band, we were the family. That
Yeah.
was my family. Those were my brothers.
Yeah.
They were my parents were their honorary parents.
Yeah.
Like, because mind you, we were underage when we started touring.
Mhm.
We weren't even 21 yet.
Yeah.
So dad was responsible and mom were responsible for all of us.
Mhm.
And they did an amazing job. Like so many of the musicians I worked with over the years have so much respect for my dad. They're like, man, his consejos, his guidance, his daddy was a very loving, structured disciplinarian,
Yeah.
old school, do your job, and if you commit to something, you do it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You don't half-ass anything.
Mhm.
You give it your 150%, and if you love it, then you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how it was. So when I come across people who are not like my father, it's really hard.
You're like, it's
It's a
difficult
very high
because
standard. I
I
mean, I'm
know.
serious.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to that though, is that people, I mean, because of the time that we live in, and we mentioned this earlier, is that people want to come up so quickly. Like
Yes.
you've got to know that. And there's
Yeah.
really there you have to have that instilled in you from like the beginning.
Right.
You know, that's like your parents' job is to teach you that you do
Right.
150% in everything.
Right.
And
I tell these new artists, when you go and you want to plant something in your garden
right.
and you want to nurture it, it's barely grown,
Hmm.
you know. So you water it, it grows, it grows. It takes time to grow
Yes.
to what it's going to become,
Hmm.
right? But even then, you never stop watering it,
No.
right?
Right.
So I'm like, artist development, which is what I do a lot now, from scratch. Um, it takes really a good 3 to 5 years
I bet.
for you to really develop into who you are
Hmm.
wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes with maturity too. If you're starting
Hmm.
young, I mean, because the amount of discipline that it took me as a child, I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, I was pretty disciplined
Yes.
to to maintain my grades in school, in order for me, because that was the deal with me.
Yeah.
When I joined the band with Hot Tamales, my dad and my mom said, look, you can be in this band, you'll play on the weekends, but if your schooling starts to suffer,
Yeah.
you're going to get out of the band.
Yeah.
So I worked hard for that.
You're
And then
like,
I was in sports, and that's kind of
yes.
how it was for sports too.
Right.
I love playing sports. So, but as far as like having the discipline to know, okay, because sometimes I play on Wednesday nights, sometimes I play
Hmm.
on Thursday nights. I'd have to go to school the next day,
Yeah. Hmm.
but I did it because I
Yeah.
loved it,
Right. Hmm.
but the amount of discipline that it takes, and it's not just in the music industry. It should always be applied into anything that you do.
Yes. Well, and I do think also, even just like any extracurricular, I'm really big on that. It's like you've got to
Yes.
be involved and commit to something,
Right.
just for the lifelong lesson that it
And
like
see it
teaches you.
through.
Yes,
See it
do not give
through.
up. Like, oh,
Now, we
preach.
start something, and that's a conversation my fiance and I have a lot because she's so good at so many things,
Yeah.
and she wants to do a lot of things. And I'm like, start with the two that you love the most.
Right.
I said, but see it through. It's not always going to be easy.
No.
There's going to be downfalls. There's going to be hard times, but you'll understand it when you get to the finish line, and you're like,
Yes.
man. And it's not so much like I love where I am right now, but what I really love the most is the things that I went through to get me here.
Right. I feel like you appreciate something a lot more
Oh gosh.
when you have, like, if it's
And
not
when you
just
work for
handed.
it,
Right. Yeah.
we used to have so many, like, especially in my heyday, which I call like the mid 90s, um, when people started seeing that Tejano was coming
Sorry,
along.
this is still your heyday, girl.
This is a different chapter of me. I'm talking about
No,
then,
I
yeah,
know,
that
I
chapter.
know.
There was a lot of investors that
Yeah.
wanted to come in, and Dad was like, no, no, I don't want to have people come in. One, because I don't want you to have to work for someone else for a
Yeah.
long time, and two, he says everything you're going to work for is going to be for you,
For you, yeah.
and you're going to love it and appreciate it more, and you're going to take care of it more. And he was so right. I mean, he was so right in that, because I remember when at 14, Mama saved my money from hot tamales.
Yeah.
And I got my own band. She saved money for me to buy all my new equipment.
Uh-huh.
So I bought all new PV equipment, brand new. And I remember seeing it at our first gig. We played at St. John Bosco. That was like one of our first gigs. It was a festival. And I remember looking at the system, and I'm like, wow, this is mine.
This is
I
yours.
earned it. And then the first bus we had was a school bus.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, first I bought a school bus, and then we bought it was like a 1940s. If y'all have ever seen the movie League of Their Own,
Oh yeah.
okay, you
Mhm.
know the buses?
Yeah.
That's what my bus looked like.
Yeah.
So it was like that. The butt was like rounded off. It was such an awesome bus. And everyone loved it. It was so retro. It was
Yeah.
so old. We would get, as a matter of fact, we stopped at a truck stop one time, and there was a band that used to be called Blind Melon.
Mhm.
They used to have a song, really big hit, and we saw this big old silver eagle, beautiful, pulling in, and we're in our brown bus, right? And we're like, man, that's a badass bus. And well, we go inside, and they're like, hey, are y'all in that bus? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, can we go see it? And we're like, yeah. And we're like, who are you? Like, we're Blind Melon. I was like, what? They were like huge at this time.
Yeah.
Look up Blind Melon.
I
They had a big hit. They came in our bus. They sat in there, and they were just talking with us like they loved our bus. They wanted to trade. I was like, no. So, and then my Silver Eagle, again, just leveling up, right?
Yeah.
Every year. My Silver Eagle we bought with cash.
Yeah.
And I remember it pulling up, and I was like, wow, this is awesome to know
Mhm.
that I worked for this and it's mine.
Yeah.
And
And no one to answer
no one
to,
to
right?
answer to,
Mhm.
because I mean, when you're with labels, that's what I tell a lot of the artists now. Labels now, from what I hear, like the main art labels, first they look at your social media following,
Mhm.
and then your gift, then your talent. But most of them really don't care how you feel about it,
Yeah.
what inspires you, how you want to portray.
Mhm.
You got to do what they say, when they say it, how they say it, and that's how
That's
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
So, it's refreshing to be able to tell artists, okay, look, yes, you can still do it independently. It's going to be hard,
Mhm.
and you never stop investing money in yourself. That never stops.
Right. Mhm.
They're like, well, it's expensive to have an album. It's expensive to use a studio.
Yeah.
It's expensive to have photo shoots. It's a business.
Yeah.
Business
Mhm.
costs money,
Yes.
you know? So again, just I encourage them to do it. I try to have them set up from the beginning, even like registering their name, getting an
Yeah.
LLC, like all of these things are important.
Yeah.
So, I just feel like my industry, my genre, allowed me to be here for so long and did so much for me that as a veteran artist, I'm gonna do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm I feel, and it's not so much to people in particular that were very instrumental, because I'm very thankful to those people. The first people to ever play my music, the first people to ever say yes to hiring us. Yes, I'm always going to be grateful, right?
Right.
But I'm talking about my genre, the style that is Tejano.
Mhm.
That's where I want to give to,
Yeah.
because it's too beautiful of a genre to disrespect.
Oh, 1000%.
And what I mean by disrespecting also is not only talking bad about the genre, talking bad about where we are in this time, but just, you know, not respecting it enough to try to do better for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I do feel like continuing to evolve it, right, is how we can get out of, I'll call it a rut that
Yeah.
we're in.
It's a
But
tug
like
of war, though.
more people though, like wanting to pursue that, wanting to help. I don't even know how to explain it because I almost want to say like be consistent with it, but be
No,
consistent
you're
with the
absolutely
evolution,
right.
I guess,
You're
is
absolutely
what.
right. I mean, because me, even now,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of these artists, I'll ask them, like, I'll produce a song with them, or they're producing a song, and they're like, Shelly, we're not getting airplay on this station. And I'll be like, okay, well, what did you do? Like,
Yeah.
did you reach out to the program director? Did you try
Mhm.
to call him? Did you try to have a conversation? Did you set up a lunch or a meeting?
Yeah.
Take them to lunch.
Yeah.
Let them get to know who you are.
Mhm.
Don't just expect them to play
No.
you, because some of these radio stations do have standards still,
Yeah.
you know, and if that doesn't work, I'll call
Yeah.
and I'll be like, "Hey, it's me," and they're like, "Hey, what's? I have this new artist.
Yeah.
I would really like for you to give them a chance to be played."
Mhm.
And I've done that for a lot of artists.
Yeah.
And then once they get to hear them, they're like, "Wow, he or she's good. We need
Yes.
to we need to add them."
Yeah.
So that's where I try to help in that sense, as well. But it's a tug of war because, like I mentioned before, so many of our important stations, like, are still our FM stations, and even some of our bigger internet stations, are not embracing some of these new artists that I know are doing things on a certain level,
Yeah.
in,
Well,
in a good way.
and it can't just be social media. Like as
No.
much as that has
Oh my
changed
gosh.
and the internet's changed, like there's
Yes.
so people in their cars, not everybody has Sirius.
Right.
Not like it is FM AM, so
Right.
it matters,
It does matter.
you
I
know.
think all of it matters.
Right.
All of it matters. You just got to find, I wouldn't say the groove of it, but I mean, for lack of a better word, you have to kind of find your way through it.
Yeah.
TikTok is a whole other monster where people think, oh, I'm on TikTok, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not the music industry.
It's not. And I do think that with a lot of different industries on social, it for some reason it's not as respected yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It
It
and
may get
it's
there,
yeah,
but
and I just try to tell people, look, people mostly want to see you singing on there.
mhm.
That's how you're entertaining them on TikTok. Okay,
Mhm.
they want to see you performing in some way, shape, or form, whether
Mm,
it's just on in your home or outside or whatever. Right? They want to hear you.
yeah.
And if every single one of those views and follows were to buy your record,
Mm.
imagine
Imagine.
all of
Yeah.
those million.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Mhm.
But that's not how it works.
I know.
So it's almost like this is a world we live in, but I think it's been a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying? It's
think you have
like
to just
it's
learn to
done some good,
navigate.
but on the business side of it, no.
It's not. Yeah, and I do think too though, just as the everyday person, like some people probably don't realize how, I mean, we all know that like taking copyright and all of that
Oh yeah.
is not good, right? Like
Right.
you can't steal people's
No.
art.
No.
But I do think that people think, oh, they're on TikTok, like they must be generating, but it's pennies sometimes. Like
It
it
is,
does. There's a
yes.
difference in like actually supporting buying an album
Right. Right.
versus, yeah.
Yes, which is why, when I signed my first artist to Shellshock, because I
Mhm.
started Shellshock Records 3 in 2012.
Mhm.
I was with Manny for 7 years, Sony for 5, and Tejas Records for 10.
Mhm.
So I went independent, major, independent.
Yeah.
And each one had their own different experiences.
Yeah.
Okay. Good and bad. Um, but I was like done.
Yeah.
I was done with being with labels. I was like, you know what? I want to learn this side of the business.
Yeah.
I want to own my own stuff. So I started Shell Shock for myself
Mhm.
first. And then I had plans and hopes and aspirations of signing artists to my label down the line, right? Because I wouldn't be able to be on the road full time like I was and commit to an artist. There's no way. Because I
Yeah.
was committing to myself first,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So I knew that was going to be later. But when I signed my first artist to my label, um, I said we're going to color all the base, cover all the bases. We're already obviously going to be streaming. We're going to be streaming your music, but I'm also going to manufacture CDs and I'm also going to manufacture vinyls.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Mhm.
And so many people loved it,
Yeah.
because you still have those fans that liked him in the Tejano realm that wanted the CD. And
Mhm.
then you have the newer generation who are loving vinyls,
Yeah.
which I absolutely am so thankful for.
I know, right?
But it costs money to
To make that.
manufacture.
I know, yeah. Right,
Okay.
exactly.
So,
Mhm.
streaming is the cheapest way
Yeah.
because you're only paying yearly on
Mhm.
this platform, whether it be DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, to
Mhm.
get your stuff onto the streaming platforms,
Yeah.
um, as opposed to buying vinyls and buying CDs.
Right. But there is like a
But you
collector's
can,
world that's come back.
profit more.
Right. Mhm.
You can profit more.
That's true.
It's better than profiting just digitally.
Digitally, yeah.
I
No,
would not want to be a new artist right now.
oh, I bet it's
I
super
wouldn't.
tough. Yeah.
I mean, for me, digitally, I do well.
Mhm.
My music, because I have music that fans cannot get anymore from the 90s,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And so my greatest hits, my legacy album, I did 40 songs for 40 years.
Yeah.
That one's like at 4.5 million
Yeah.
streams.
Streaming.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. So that one does well for me. I mean,
Yeah.
that does well for me.
Yeah.
But for new artists, it's
It's
hard.
really hard, and there's so many of them. Like it's so
I
saturated to get
know. There's
seen.
so many good
There,
ones.
right, and that's what I mean. Is like, yeah, there's just a lot of good ones, but it's like what you were saying. Just keep on keeping on. Like you cannot give up.
Yes. No, don't. I mean, you have to, and all of those things that I was saying it takes, you have to have grit
Mhm.
because another thing about being an artist people don't understand is it is a lot of sacrifice, especially if you're very family oriented.
Yeah.
Okay. Because for me, I'm investing in my artist, right?
Mhm.
First of all, I believe in him,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because that's what made me fall in love with his voice in the beginning is because I wanted to sign him
Yeah.
because I love his versatility. I loved his voice.
Mhm.
And then, okay, I'm taking you on. I'm going to invest and do this for you, but at the same time, you have to come this way to me.
Yeah.
You
Uh
know,
huh.
and in order for you to be successful, for my investment to work out, you have to be out there. You
Mhm.
have to get out.
Yeah.
You have to be performing.
Mhm.
You have to be doing, promotion. Um, and I got him signed to a talent agency called TJF Talent, where for acting, because he's
Mhm.
an actor. So I'm like, already as Shellshock Records 3, I am going way beyond what a label does.
Yeah.
As a label, all I'm responsible for is recording him,
Mhm.
manufacturing his music, and promoting the music.
Yes. Mhm.
That's it.
He's responsible for his likeness, right? Like
He's
to
responsible for putting a band together. He's
yeah.
responsible if he wants to get bookings,
Yeah.
or go get a manager, or go get a
Yeah.
booking agent. Getting to the gig,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's his responsibility.
Yeah. Showing up.
But
Yeah.
because I
Mhm.
know it, and because I want to see it through,
Yes.
I started going beyond what a label does.
Yeah. Well, that's what's going to set you apart
I'm,
too,
and
though,
that's
right?
what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. I wanted,
Mhm.
again, I lead with artist heart and a label
Yeah.
mind.
Yes.
So, but they really have a hard time understanding that, you know, not having the family around, and
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yes.
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be forever,
Right.
but you go to a job and you
Exactly.
don't take your family.
Yeah, no. I mean, at the end of
And
the
you're
day,
at your job 5 days a week,
right?
As opposed to the weekend as a starting artist.
Yes. I mean, it's a business, baby, right? Like you gotta.
That's what does not make sense to me
Yeah.
with artists that, and I've come across a few of them, not just my artist. I've come across a few where we've had these discussions, but they don't go to work with you. So, why is it different?
Yeah. It's not, but
Yeah, it's still a job.
yeah, no, it is, and I
And it
think
doesn't
that's what
mean you
people
don't love it.
right. But I think people get confused passion, like you have a passion for something. They
Now, if you're
confuse
doing
it
it as
with
a hobby, I'm not the label for you.
yeah. No, but that's what I'm saying though. Like if you're
Yes,
passionate about it, it is your business. So it is your 9 to 5, quote unquote.
absolutely.
I don't know what that
And
was,
and
quote.
what I try to do is get them money that pays them more for a 45-minute set than they do in 2 weeks.
Yes. Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm working on hours and days that they don't see for
Yes.
them.
Mhm.
They don't see that.
Yeah.
Making those calls,
Mhm.
trying to make those connections,
Yeah.
setting up those contracts.
Yeah.
They don't see that,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of frustration sometimes too, and I have to um but with me, I mean, I roll with the punches, man. I can bob and weave. I know this business,
Yeah.
and I know where um kind of really what to take to heart and what not to take to heart, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, I want all of that mindset and that ethic. I want it to come back. I want it to. It needs to,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm almost like a parent at times.
No, for
Raising
sure.
these artists
Yeah.
that I'm like, look, these are what you have to do because you're prepping your children
Yeah.
for what's to come,
Yep.
right?
Preach.
I mean, so it's like, dang. That's why I never had kids. I have too many artists. They're all my children.
These are the days of our
Yes,
lives.
that's right.
Tell me then, Shelly, what is something that people misunderstand about you?
That I'm very difficult to work with.
Really?
I think so. I think because I know what I want, and um, I try not to. I try not to give the same uh, negative energy back. Like, when I have someone come to me, and like if they come at me, like, I have this thing about me that's like, okay, look, I'm gonna draw this line. You're not gonna cross it. This is what's gonna
Yes.
happen here. But I
Hmm.
think that is something that's come to me for many years, because
Yeah.
I've had people say, my artists, they reach out directly to my artists, and my artists will be like, oh, well, you have to talk to Shelly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Either that, or they just know that I'm not gonna let them get away with
Right.
taking advantage of my artists.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the main ones. There's two really big ones.
Hmm.
That I'm hard to work with. I haven't heard it very often, but it's been said. Um, a lot of people like that I shoot from the hip, that I don't sugarcoat stuff. A lot of
Hmm.
people like that, and it's not to be mean, because I'm giving them a different perspective.
Yeah.
And the second one that I kind of sometimes see on social media is that I was jealous of Selena. That was the second one.
All right, that does it for part one of Lady on the Street podcast. Make sure you tune in next week for part two. And don't forget to follow me on social media at Lady on the Street podcast. You can find me on all of the major platforms. And of course, if you're here on YouTube, make sure you like, rate, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next week.